Welcome to Common Sense Rhode Island. This is a program where we try to make sense out of the policies that affect your life and come up with common sense solutions. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Michael Riley, who is a financial advisor with two financial firms, both of which you started.
Yes, that's correct.
And one is Coastal
Management Group, LLC.
And the other is Beach Street.
Beach Street Financial Services.
And one of those runs a hedge fund, and you've been in financial services for a long, long time.
I started on the floor of the Chicago Board Options Exchange in 1973, the year the exchange was founded.
All right, so you know an awful lot about investing.
Yes.
Which is really good, because today I actually wanted to talk with you a little bit about the state pension fund, the Providence's pension fund, and also about some bond offerings that are going to be coming up connected with
Sure.
roadworks.
I'm much more of an expert on the pensions than I am on the recent bond offerings, but I would be happy to give you
All
my
right,
opinion.
well, I'm sure you know more than the rest of us do, so let's just dive in. The state's pension fund, where is it now? What's its state of health?
So in terms of a funded ratio, which is the normal term used to determine any municipality or state's health, it's roughly 56, 57% funded as of right now, and headed lower. The reason it's headed lower is because our returns on the assets that are in the pension fund, funding the liabilities going out in the future, are growing less, not even growing at this point. And the liabilities are growing. They continue to grow.
So let's talk about that. We're supposed to make 7.5% in order to maintain it at, it was 60%, right? Funded?
Yeah, so
we had
that's
to make
a really
7.5% every year. If we make less than that, the funded ratio goes down.
Well, let's just talk about where Rhode Island stands, okay?
Okay.
So 50 states in the union, we're in the bottom 10. And that's after reform.
Of funded ratio?
Yeah.
Oh, so we're not
We're not
doing
even
well
close.
at all. Okay.
All right. So we, Rhode Islanders, say that the critical status level for our cities and towns and our state is 60%. Every major agency, Pew Trust, Moody's, they're up around 80%.
Okay.
Is what they consider a healthy funded. So let's just say the bar has been set very low and we're still below it.
We're bumping along and we're below it and we're going lower.
And we're headed lower.
And so we're not making 7.5% on the money that we have in there?
No. Over, since Magaziner took office, he has not made money, zero.
None?
None. He's the first in many, many years to have a negative return in a calendar year, and he's about to do it in a fiscal year. Now, if we did have a very strong market recently from February lows to where we are now, bumping up against new highs, but amazingly enough, even with the stock market within a whisper of all-time highs, since he's been in office, we're going to show no growth at all, like zero.
So I assume that's because of the investments that are inside the...
It's completely because of that.
Okay, it's completely because of that.
Yeah.
Wrong investments.
Yeah.
Can you, I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the choices inside.
Oh, I've,
Which
yeah.
ones are not performing?
I have, and so the
Is it
experiment...
asset classes? Okay.
The experiment that Raimondo came in with in 2011, roughly, she put in most of her hedge fund investments in November of 2011. There's probably been 10 that have dropped out because of bad performance. One that was kicked out for political reasons that actually had good performance. But overall, the hedge funds have not done their job, contrary to the statements that come out of the Treasury. Yeah.
So they have done poorly. Now, let me just give a little pushback on this. Some of the endowments, like the Harvard endowment, the Yale endowment, they use hedge funds.
Yes, they do.
And they have kind of been a bulwark against bad markets.
Yeah.
Did we just pick the wrong hedge funds?
Essentially, yes. But also, a pension fund is a little different than an endowment fund. So I advise endowments, I advise pensions, I advise foundations. So I recently advised a foundation that they could run their entire foundation with just 2 investments and be less risky than Rhode Island.
Okay.
So that just tells you that Rhode Island has a very complicated scheme that's built on academics, which might not surprise you given our governor and former treasurer, and Magaziner, who has a little bit of knowledge about what that might mean, but professed that he was going to come in and with his expertise provide great returns because that's the only thing that matters. He's done basically nothing. He's sat with Raimondo's plan and it's starting to fail.
It's failing.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just talk a little bit. An endowment is different from a pension fund because the pension fund constantly has money going out to the retirees. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a constant flow of money, whereas an endowment, if they're not making a return, they can just stop.
Yeah, they can stop using it for whatever they were using it for. And they probably have some kind of guidelines as to, okay, we can overdraw 1 year, but not 2, that sort of thing. The pension fund is in the condition right now that we actually have more money coming out than going in through contributions from the state and from the employees. Okay, so if we were to do nothing and not earn any money, our assets would go down because we're actually net drawing. It's the same.
And that's what's happening now.
That's what's happening now.
Money is coming in.
Yeah.
It's going out plus.
Right. So if you have a $8 billion pension fund, let's say it's $7 billion, and you have to make 7.5%, well, you've got to make 7 times 7.5, around $500 million just to hold the status quo on what they've projected going out 20,
just
25, 30
lose.
years.
Yeah,
they're trying to stay on this track. But when Raimondo did the reform, it was easily provable, and she even said it in her Truth in Numbers, I don't know if you remember that thing, that there was only a 47% chance at that time that they would actually achieve adequate funding over the next 25 years. And that was at that time. It's gotten worse.
And it's gotten worse because the investments inside are just the wrong investments.
Well, yeah, and in general, we're all butting against the idea you can't just make 7.5% because you want to. No one can make 2%. If you're in Europe, you're talking negative interest rates.
That's right.
So the 10-year German Bund is negative.
Actually, that's another case. I think a lot of the assets inside the pension fund are in cash. They have to be in cash.
Well, they do because of their flows, their cash flows.
The flow is going out, so you can't keep it even all invested.
Right.
And if it's invested in bad things, it's going down.
They have to keep a certain amount of their funds relatively liquid. Yeah, and it's very hard to catch up once you start to fall behind because that would mean excess of 7.5 returns. So, barring some huge bull market, there's going to be a problem.
And the practical impact on taxpayers is?
So for the state plan, I expect there won't be much that happens. I don't think the state plan is on the verge of, being liquidated or defaulted. I just think we're going to continue in this malaise of poor returns and the treasurer, whoever that treasurer might be, using that role as a political tool to give the right people the right asset allocations so that they can remember them in their next run for office. That's exactly what's happening, in my opinion, with Seth Magaziner. He doesn't want to be treasurer. He wants to be something else. This is his first step, and the whole thing he's doing right now is just to move on.
Okay, well, with that, we're just going to take a break now and ask, are you kidding me?